On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences. We remain committed to meeting our responsibilities under the Taiwan Relations Act, including making sure that Taiwan has the ability to defend itself.
This is my video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Tuesday morning. Let's talk about some news. And it is one hot Tuesday, June the 20th. It's probably like 40 degrees Celsius right now. So let's try to get through this video. And let's start things off with a tweet from the Kiev Independent. And they put out this tweet. ISW, Institute for the Study of War. Ukrainian forces may be temporarily pausing counteroffensive operations to reevaluate tactics. The Institute for the Study of War quoted the head of the Estonian Defense Forces Intelligence Center, Colonel Margo Grosberg, who said on June the 16th that we won't see an offensive operation by Ukraine over the next 7 days. A pause in the big counteroffensive. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. I actually mentioned this in the video that I did in Larnaca 2 days ago, that there was an Estonian commander who was talking about pausing the counteroffensive, and sure enough, the Institute for the Study of War has picked this up, and they are saying that Ukraine is considering a pause in the offensive, or NATO, along with Ukraine, is considering a pause in the big counteroffensive because things are not going as planned. And we always have to remember that the Institute for the Study of War is Victoria Nuland's family. So when they come out with tweets like this, I imagine this is being seriously considered by the neocons and the collective West, the U.S. State Department. Since we're talking about Vicky Nuland's family. And Danilov, the one Ukraine intel official who is not missing, unlike Budanov, who is missing. By the way, Budanov, allegedly, he gave an interview to a Ukraine publication, and he said that he is all well and good. He's alive and well and working, and he said something like he's going to continue to haunt the Russians and the Russian military or something like that. I mean, maybe he didn't say haunt. I don't know. He said something along those lines, but this wasn't a video interview. This wasn't anything like that. This was a print interview / statement where Budanov claims to be all good from, this is an online newspaper in Ukraine. If you want to believe it, great. If you don't want to believe it, that's also cool. But the one intel official who is on video giving interviews and running his mouth is Danilov. And he said that the counteroffensive is going according to plan, but only a limited circle of people know the plan. Zelensky also said that all is going well with the counteroffensive. Quote, in some areas, our forces are advancing. In others, they are holding positions and repelling Russian attacks. We do not have positions that we have lost, only positions that we have vacated. We do not have positions that we have lost, only positions that we have vacated. Okay. And the Russians are going on the offensive. The Deputy Defense Minister, Malyar, I believe it's Anna. Is it Anna Malyar? she said that, I don't know what her first name is, Malyar. And she said that that Russia's going on the offensive. That's what she said. So as Zelensky is saying that Russia is going on the offensive, she said that Russia is also going on the offensive. And they're specifically going on the offensive in the direction of Kupiansk. That is where the Russians are advancing. Kupiansk and where else? And the Limansk directions, Kupiansk and Limansk. So the counteroffensive has now turned into a Russian offensive. Is that what's happening now? All right, so it's not going well. It is not going well for Ukraine at all. The village of Piatkhatsky, the 5 homes, this village that Ukraine was celebrating taking over. Well, the Russians took that over, and then it changed hands over the last day, and it just remains in the gray zone, and that's it. That's what's going on in this very small village, and that's where Ukraine is right now. That's where the Ukraine military is. They are stuck in the gray zone. Reports are that they have lost around 20% of everything NATO gave them going into this counteroffensive. They're now running around trying to get more weapons and more money and more tanks and F-16s and all kinds of military goodies. But if they've only gotten to the gray zone, if they've only made it to this gray zone area, not even the first line of defenses, and they've already lost 20% at a minimum, then how much will they lose if they make it to the first line of defense? Another 20%? So they would have lost 40% of everything that NATO's given them. And if they make it to the second line of defense, how much will they lose? Another 20%? 60%? This is not sustainable. And maybe that's why the Institute for the Study of War and the Newland family is saying it's time to put a pause in this before we lose everything that we've given you for this counteroffensive. So that's the news out of Ukraine. We'll get back to Ukraine as the video goes along, but let's shift gears now and talk a bit about Blinken in China. Blinken in China, that's the big story from yesterday. So Blinken wrapped up his trip to China. He actually got a meeting with Xi Jinping. They met for about 25, 30 minutes. And the general reports coming out of the meetings between Blinken and various Chinese officials, the foreign minister, Xi Jinping, and other leaders in China, was that there was no significant breakthrough from these talks. Did they help to move U.S.-China relations to a better place? Yeah, I would say that's the reports that we're getting from the U.S. State Department as well as from the Chinese readouts. But according to the Chinese readouts, the state of U.S.-China relations were already at their lowest point in history. So these talks did manage to push things towards a better trajectory, but things have a long way to go. And here's an interesting paragraph from the Global Times as they describe the meeting between Blinken and Xi Jinping, between the United States and China. This is what the Global Times said. China has consistently demonstrated its strategic clarity to the U.S., which is a sharp contrast with U.S. side's strategic ambiguity. The 3 most commonly used adjectives by both sides for their high-level communication are frank, in-depth, and constructive. Clarity represents frankness. We believe that Blinken deeply understands this during his visit. China has thoroughly explained the root causes of the low point in China-US relations, the urgent tasks for both sides, China's intentions and goals for development and revitalization, and the most prominent risks in the bilateral relationship. China does not harbor ill intentions towards the US, but it will definitely counteract any suppressive actions. If the US still has any misunderstandings about China's strategic intentions, then we can only assume that they are deliberate and pretending to be ignorant. So I read that paragraph as basically China saying to the United States, saying about the meetings with Blinken that they told Blinken, this is your last chance to start showing some responsibility and to start acting on your many broken promises. That's basically what China told Blinken. That was the message that they gave to Blinken. You've told us many things in the past, you've promised many things, and you've promised better relations, but you always break those promises. So let's be frank with one another. This is our last, I don't want to say warning. This is the last opportunity that we're giving you, Blinken, so that you can start to move things in the right direction. That's what I think they left Blinken. That's the message that they left Blinken with. And Blinken, his main goal in these meetings, one of his main goals was to set up a military communication line between China and the United States, and China actually rejected that. Blinken also wanted to talk about Russia, and weapons to Russia and all of these things, the conflict in Ukraine, but China rejected that as well. Actually, there are no readouts that I've seen from the Chinese side where they even mention discussing Russia. So he failed there as well. But that was the meeting between the United States and China, between Blinken and Xi Jinping and other officials in China. So low expectations, no real breakthroughs, but at least the sides are talking to one another, and China is telling the United States it's time to not just tell us empty words and empty promises. It's time to act. Action, not words. That was pretty much what China told Blinken. And we have news that China is considering, this is according to the Wall Street Journal, is considering a military training facility in Cuba. Beijing plans a new training facility in Cuba, raising prospect of Chinese troops on America's doorsteps. And this is worrying the Biden administration. So Chinese diplomacy with Blinken, and then China is also putting on the pressure with a training facility in Cuba as well. If the U.S. can send weapons and troops to Taiwan, well, China can also send troops to Cuba. I guess that's the message there. So Biden, he was in California, and Joe Budanov, Greece's favorite son, he told the good people of California that Russia will absolutely, or has the potential, to use tactical nuclear weapons. That is what Biden told a gathering in California who came out to listen to Joe Budanopoulos speak. And this is according to Reuters. Biden says the threat of Putin using tactical nuclear weapons is real. On Saturday, Biden called Putin's announcement that Russia had deployed its first tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus absolutely irresponsible. When I was out there about 2 years ago saying I worried about the Colorado River drying up, everybody looked at me like I was crazy, Biden told a group of donors in California on Monday. They looked at me like when I said I worry about Putin using tactical nuclear weapons. It's real, Biden said. Come on, man. It's real. So what worries me is that the Biden administration and the neocons are talking a whole lot about tactical nukes, whether it's giving tactical nukes to Ukraine, whether it's Russia using tactical nukes, which to me is projection. They're talking a whole lot about tactical nukes. And when they're talking about tactical nukes, that means that the neocons, along with the Biden White House, are actually kicking this idea around. They're actually saying, you know what, guys, the counteroffensive is failing. We're coming to the end of the road with Project Ukraine. We don't really have many options left. We have Polish troops. That's one option. Let's send Poland in there. We have U.S. troops, but it's an election cycle, and that might not go over too well with the American voter. So let's think about that one. And then we have tactical nukes. Do we give the tactical nukes to Ukraine? Do we give the tactical nukes? I don't know. Do we give it to the Polish troops entering Russia? Do we create a false flag? What do we do? What do we do with tactical nukes? How can tactical nukes help us save Project Ukraine? I think they're throwing out some various ideas and possibilities, and this is worrying. This is very worrying. And Biden, he's speaking to donors in California, and he's listening in on all these conversations as he's napping, and then he's waking up, and then he's napping, and he's waking up, and he's listening to what Newland and Blinken and Sullivan and Austin Milley and all these guys are saying, and he blurts it out to donors in California. So that's a worrying development, as reported by Reuters. And Belarus in Poland, they're actually training a group of militants to overthrow the Belarusian government and to overthrow Lukashenko. This was reported by, I believe, the Times of London. They ran an article with the title, "Meet Predator and Granddad, the exiled Belarusians plotting against Putin's friend." In a field behind a Polish business park, an insurrection is brewing. A group of exiles, electricians and factory workers, young and old, don balaclavas, load dummy assault rifles, and crawl through the undergrowth. "My daughter doesn't know I am here. I told her I was going paintballing," says Predator, a 42-year-old female volunteer at the session in Poznan. "But her motive is clear. I came here today to prepare for the fight for Belarus." So in Poland, they are training militants to give another go at regime change in Belarus. And the Belarus authorities, they know what's going on. They're monitoring the situation. Quote, "We know particular recruitment posts, know who is involved, know the training camps, the identities of instructors, who teaches which parts of the course," Belarus Security Chief Ivan Tertel claimed in April. The Times described the recruits at the boot camp as common Belarusians who want to topple the government of President Lukashenko in response to Stalin-esque campaign of torture and detention that has all but silenced dissent in the country. The report on Sunday focused on a camp near the Polish city of Poznan, operated by BIPOL, the group of former officers from Belarus security services who fled the country following protests in 2022. Similar combat training sessions have been taking place in the NATO nation for months, with the number of recruits in the hundreds, by Poles' leadership claims. The number of troops in the hundreds. That's not going to be enough to overthrow Lukashenko, because Lukashenko doesn't only have hundreds of thousands of Russian troops, maybe 100,000, maybe 150,000, maybe 200,000, but more importantly, Lukashenko now has nuclear weapons, and those nuclear weapons are being deployed in Belarus as we speak. For an indefinite amount of time, according to the Kremlin, they are going to keep those nuclear weapons in Belarus, under Russian control, but in Belarus indefinitely. So whatever ideas NATO has or Poland has as far as some sort of regime change in Belarus, I would think long and hard about those plans. So that is what is happening in Belarus. They still haven't given up on regime changing Lukashenko. Even though Lukashenko, many people have not reported on this, Lukashenko pardoned, what was his name? The journalist I think he was for Nexta. He was like the editor or the deputy editor of Nexta, Protasevich. Lukashenko actually pardoned Protasevich, who was one of the guys that was organizing the protests and calling for the overthrow of Lukashenko. He actually pardoned Protasevich and his girlfriend, and they were taking part in the coup attempt in 2020. So not many people are reporting on how dictator Lukashenko actually pardoned the very people that tried to overthrow him. So that's what's happening in Belarus. And before I get to my clown world, do I have some more stories? And boy, do I have a good clown world for today. Reuters is also reporting that the Ukraine grift rolls on as the Zelensky regime, they target $40 billion for a green Marshall Plan. And according to Reuters, what the Zelensky regime is going to do is they are going to start up their steel industry, and it's going to be a green steel industry. So the Biden White House and Ursula von der Crazy, they're going to really like that. Annalena Baerbock. It's going to be a green steel industry, and what they're asking for is $40 billion so they can start this up, giving the figure of $40 billion for an initial phase of reconstruction. Rostislav Shurma, a deputy head of President Zelensky's office, said the first focus would be the iron and steel industry. If you have to rebuild, it is logical to rebuild green, in line with new technologies. Our vision is to build a 50 million tons green steel industry in Ukraine, he told Reuters. The European Union, right before I was going to do this video, before I was recording, I saw that the EU has approved or is about to approve a $50 billion euro financial aid package, according to Bloomberg, to the Zelensky regime. The money can be allocated in the form of grants, soft loans, or guarantees. The European Commission will offer Ukraine a 50 billion euro bailout package, according to Bloomberg. Wow. 50 billion bailout package, 40 billion green steel industry. Not bad for Zelensky. I can buy many homes with this money, many homes. But I want green homes. This is what I want. I want people of Europe to know that homes I buy will be green. They will be green homes, so do not worry. So that's a good 90 billion right there. Not bad at all for a comedian actor. Not bad at all. So that's That's kind of breaking news, actually. Let's see here. I'm not so organized today in my stories. I'm kind of winging it for today. I've actually got two clown worlds. One has to do with Zaluzhny. And it's kind of a clown world. Maybe I'll dub it a pre-clown world. You know, Sam Bankman-Fried, he's had five charges dropped against him. He had something like 12 charges against him, the guy that had FTX and was funneling Bitcoin to the Zelensky regime and then taking that money, Bitcoin donations, and then funneling it to the DNC. Well, they've dropped 5 charges against him. Total of 12 charges, and it looks like the guy's going to get a slap on the wrist. The FTX co-founder was facing 13 criminal charges, but in a court filing seen by insider, federal prosecutors said they would withdraw 5 of these for the October 2 trial. That's because those accusations were only submitted after Bankman-Fried was extradited from the Bahamas, where his crypto exchange was headquartered. The guy's going to get off. The guy is going to get off, or he's going to get a very light sentence. They're just they're drawing this out so that people can forget about it. That's why this is all being delayed. So we'll have a trial on October 2nd. A lot of people, however, have already forgotten why exactly Bankman-Fried was arrested anyway. That news story has kind of faded anyway. And they'll drag this out a little bit more, and there'll be some story posted maybe 6 months from now or a year from now on Reuters or on Business Insider, which will say something like FTX founder released from minimum security prison / country club, now a free man. That'll be the story in like a year or so, or in 6 months. It pays to have friends at the DNC, that's for sure. Bangladesh, they have applied to join BRICS. That's one story. Iran, I believe, they have applied to join the SCO, or their application is towards the final stages of joining the SCO as well. And I think I can now move into my pre-clown world before I get to my clown world. And my pre-clown world is another story on Commander Zaluzhny. So I did a video on this yesterday. Putin talked about Zaluzhny. Where is Zaluzhny? One of the war correspondent journalists asked Putin, Где Zaluzhny? And Putin's like, he could be abroad. He could be somewhere where you need to speak a different language. But I don't know. He's like, I don't know. Well, after Putin came out with his comments, and after I did my video yesterday, we had a very, very slick video put out there by the Zelensky regime, by the Ukraine government. A very well-produced video showing Zaluzhny at the big table planning the counteroffensive. He had this like Yoda patch on his uniform, and everyone was really excited to see that Zaluzhny has a Yoda patch. It means that the force is with him. So very, very well thought out. A very well thought out video. They put the Yoda patch on him. They had this table where he was with other officials. They had in the background, they were very, very certain to show the date. So I think the date was 17th of June, I believe. That was the date that they had. So they were very deliberate in making sure that everyone could see the date, even though other things were kind of pixelated. So they had that there. They also had a calendar, like a flip book calendar right next to him with the dates. I believe it was 11 or 28. Anyway, the dates on all the way at the end of the week would make it so that if you were looking at a June calendar on a Sunday, those dates would match up. I hope you understand what I mean there. So they had that kind of sitting right there to the side of the table. So everything was very well placed. So so that was the video that came out showing Zaluzhny, and he's running the counteroffensive. At least that's the message that they wanted to show. And and yeah, I mean, if you are to believe this, maybe it's a deep fake. There are some people saying that that the dates and the clocks behind him are actually placed into the video because they seem a bit shaky. I don't know about that. Maybe this is some slick video production. Maybe this is not Zaluzhny. Who knows? But it looked, at first glance to me, I guess you could say it looked legit. But this raises another question. If it is indeed Zaluzhny, and he is indeed the commander of the Ukraine forces, and he's in charge of the counteroffensive as they wanted to show, then what does Germany say? And what does the collective West say, given the fact that the collective West mainstream media says that Zaluzhny was the person that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? What happens now that Zaluzhny allegedly has surfaced, and he is the one that is running the big counteroffensive? What does the European Union say? What does Germany say? Given that the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Financial Times, Reuters, Politico, all of these publications have come out and said that Zaluzhny is the person that blew up Nord Stream. He's the one that commanded the destruction of Nord Stream. What happens now? I mean, I don't know. In this video, Zaluzhny really didn't talk, or he didn't make any statements as well. So, I mean, you could kind of hear a little bit of chatter, but it's hard to tell if that's Zaluzhny or if those were the other people at the meeting. Anyway, that's my pre-clown world. Let's get to my clown world. And this clown world has to do with an article from, let's see here, it's another publication out of the UK, The Telegraph. I always get those publications confused, The Times and The Telegraph. Anyway, The Telegraph, they ran an article with the title, "Kremlin Officials Turn to Heavy Drinking to Cope with War Stress." Senior Russian government members are turning up to meetings drunk as they down vodka, cognac, and wine throughout the day, sources say. The Kremlin has doubled its wine allowance for Russian officials to alleviate the stress of the Ukraine counteroffensive. Sources told the exiled Vestka news website that Russian government officials have taken to sipping cognac throughout the day and turning up to meetings drunk and morose. Vestka quoted one of the sources as saying, "Not everyone used to start their day with a glass of vodka, but now I know many more people who do. For some, a glass has turned into a bottle." Other than enjoying German beer, when he was stationed in Dresden as a Soviet spy in the 1990s, Putin is known as a drinker. Vetska sources confirmed that he has not hit the bottle to cope with the disappointment of his invasion of Ukraine, but many of his senior lieutenants have. Oh, poor Russia, those poor Russian officials. The only way they can cope with the massive, huge success of Zaluzhny's big counteroffensive is to just hit that bottle. You know, the stereotype of the Russians and the drinking and the hitting of the bottle. Yep. Nothing bigoted or racist about this article from the Telegraph. Nope. Nothing at all, but we're all to believe that the Russian commanders, they're downing the vodka in the morning for breakfast. They're having their sirniki, their blini, and of course vodka. You have to have vodka because things are just not going well. You know, Ukraine is making big advances in the counteroffensive. So big that the Institute for the Study of War is now saying that maybe there should be a pause in the counteroffensive. But you know, that's causing a lot of concern for Putin and his top military officials. Oh boy, oh boy. They have no shame. They have absolutely no shame, the collective West media, especially the UK media. They're the worst of the worst, the UK media. Before I leave you for the day, let me give you a little bonus here, if I can find it. This is coming from The Sun, and I think I saved this, though I might not have saved it. Here we go. Found it. From the UK, The Sun. Old banger. Shocking drone footage shows clapped out Lada rigged with explosives on top of Kakhovka Dam, proving Russia blew it up. UK media, everybody. All right, that's the video. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Locals, Telegram, and go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.